going into AI, there's lots of differing opinions on how, let's say, potentially fatal it could be or positive it could be. What's your position on that?
So, call me an internal optimist. Maybe I am. My vision of AI, I think there's one fundamental mistake we're making when the pessimists are discussing the potentially horrible ramifications of what they call runaway AI, which basically defines an artificial intelligence that becomes self-replicates, lives on its own, and basically either leaves us by the wayside, like the ants. It's no longer interested in us because it's too intelligent, or may even kill us. Terminator type of a future, right? I don't believe that for a second. And the reason why I don't believe it is because in my opinion, we will be experiencing is what some people, including Ray Kurzweil, call the singularity. The singularity being defined by the merger of humanity and technology. Human biology and technology will merge to a certain extent, are starting to merge. If you currently have a pacemaker, you basically have AI, you have technology inside of you. If you have a hip replacement, you have technology inside of you. Right? You have basically a version of Tesla inside of you somewhere. I forget about the brand, just to give the idea. And as a result of the two merging, there is no runaway AI. We will become one with technology, and that is what we call the singularity, which according to people like Ray Kurzweil will happen sometime between 2030 and 2035.
Interesting.
So don't be afraid of AI, because you will be AI. You will be AI, and some people will opt out. Clearly, a lot of you may have heard of Neuralink, Elon Musk's new project, which basically hooks up your brain, your frontal neocortex to the cloud. You will have the option of saying yes or no. Clearly, right? But the key question, which is an ethical one, a philosophical one, a political one, that we all will have to ask ourselves in the very near future is yes or no. Do I accept being enhanced, or do I refuse that enhancement, knowing that when you refuse, there will be a second class of citizens, call them the couch potatoes, who will be left behind, while on one side you will have superhumans. That will definitely happen. There is no question in my mind that that's what we'll have. And that is basically where I see, you're talking about a divide, right? Some people may think, well, that's only going to be available to the wealthy. Well, initially, as with any technology, that is the case. And as with any technology, including the cell phone that we already all have, the smartphone, when technology first comes to market, it is very expensive. It hardly ever works. And there's a lot of issues with it. So if you take, for example, the smartphone, the ancestor of the smartphone, we needed a briefcase to carry it around. It cost thousands of dollars, pounds, euros a month to carry around, and the costs dropped all the time. Then, as with any technology, it becomes rapidly democratized and demonetized. It becomes cheaper, more people can afford it, and it works better and better. And ultimately, people today on welfare carry a smartphone, can make their calls, and have access to a supercomputer in their hands that Bill Clinton didn't have when he was president of the United States. Right? That's what we tend to forget. To the same token, when economists calculate GDP, they make a fundamental error. GDP, in my opinion, is no longer an accurate way of measuring standard of living or how we're progressing on an economic scale. So when they're taking this device, no matter which brand, the smartphone, they're calculating the purchase value of that device, be it 100 pounds, 1,000 pounds, or anywhere in between. That's the only unit, the only metric that's being incorporated in the GDP, completely disregarding the fact that the device itself, if you aggregate all the technology that went into it, is $1 million device. Right? So they're not saying we're all carrying $1 million device on us. They're saying we're carrying a 500-pound device on us, which is a fundamental error. So, in my opinion, GDP is no longer the way to calculate a standard of living, a standard of life.
Well, there's a comedic take on that point, which is what would you need to do if you were to take out all of the things which are on your phone now, but in prior times? So, like the comedian goes around and says, "All right, I've got to go and get my torch, and I've got to go and get my big map," and it's a whole point about how it's
My
innovative what to
Encyclopedia
do.
Britannica,
Yeah.
all 34 volumes of them.